Hello and welcome to the Lane 9 podcast. My name is Ben Weissel, and joining me, we have a very special guest today, D3 superstar who has headed to the Division One ranks, Ryan Wilson. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Excited to talk to you. I think we've primarily had just Division One athletes, so I'm excited to kind of hear about your experience at another level, and then transition to what you're looking forward to doing this year. So why don't we just start with what brought you to MIT? I know you're a California native. What brought you to go halfway across the country to MIT and the Division 3 level, especially?
Yeah, so I guess back in high school, I wasn't really planning on investing myself in running all that much in college. So D3 was definitely kind of there's some pros to it, definitely less of a commitment than most D1 schools. And then I guess besides that, I was really looking to just get to go to a good academic school because I was pretty focused on that back then. And yeah, I was looking at some Ivy League schools as well as MIT, and then yeah, I ended up getting in. So it was pretty much my first choice. So yeah, I ended up going there.
What made it your first choice? Was it the academics, the team kind of atmosphere?
Yeah. So obviously I want to go into tech, and
Okay,
MIT is pretty good for tech, I guess. And yeah, I took my visit there. I liked it out there. I like Boston. I've visited there back in middle school, and I thought it was super cool. I was a pretty big Red Sox fan growing up, Celtics fan,
nice.
Patriots fan. So yeah, I just felt kind of like home that I've never even been to really yet. But yeah, I just felt like a good fit.
How are you a Boston sports fan? So I'm a Philly sports fan. But that's through my parents. I haven't really lived in the Philly area. So
Yeah,
how about you?
yeah, similar story. Like my dad
Okay.
was from Boston, so he was a Red Sox and stuff. And yeah, it got me into it. I had all their jerseys and everything.
Great. Okay, that's cool that you're able to reconnect those two things by going to
Yeah.
school. So, you did have very good PRs out of high school of 152, 417. I feel like D3 gets a bad rap of it's just kind of guys who are super serious, but clearly you took it seriously in high school to have those PRs. When did I guess when did that shift happen where you weren't going to be taking it quite as seriously and were focusing on the academics to you really pouring yourself into running a lot more?
Um, I guess back in high school, school was much easier back then, so I could kind of get good grades and then
Hmm.
also try really hard in running instead. But I kind of planned on taking my foot off the gas and running once I got to college and then focusing more on academics there. So I guess that's kind of when the switch happened. But then yeah, I guess I switched back during COVID, I would say. Kind of school went online, so it got pretty easy, and then we had a whole 10-month base to build up through COVID, and I was just for some reason really motivated and used that time to just build in a base that I'd never built in before, and then following that, I kind of started running much faster.
And much faster you did, yeah. And you're now. And I meant to mention this at the top, but you are a three-time Division 3 record holder in the mile, 15 and 800. You're a five-time NCAA champion. You're two-time cross-country All-American, which I think is really impressive to show that range. Let's go back though a little bit. What kind of drew you to running initially, and what were there other sports that you were interested? What's kind of your runner origin story?
Yeah. Growing up, I was always playing soccer in the fall, baseball in the spring, I think. And yeah, I just did both of those sports growing up until right before high school or so. And then I kind of moved into just soccer. And then I went out for the cross country team more just for fun because I happen to know a lot of people on the team. and I ended up just really liking it. And I really liked kind of like the objective aspect to it, like you know, you put in like X amount of training, like you're pretty sure you're gonna get like X amount of fitness back,
Right.
and just like different in like soccer, baseball, where like the coach can pull you or have opinions about like what position you want to play or something. Like in running, like if you just run a time, like nobody can say anything about that. It's pretty concrete. So I kind of like really like that. The aspect of like the amount of work that you put in is really correlated with your success in the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your point about it being objective is a very salient one because my brother, who was a lacrosse player, the difference in our like recruiting stories was incredible. Like I could just run wherever as long as I ran a good time. Any coach would be able to see that. He had to
Yeah,
travel all over the place just to get a coach to see him, and even if they
yeah.
saw him, they could have varying opinions. So no, that's a very good point. So when I was doing some research, I noticed that you had maybe dealt with some health issues as a freshman, and you've moved on past that now. But did that experience kind of make you value running, or make you a little bit more grateful to be able to do it?
Yeah, yeah, that was definitely like a huge part of what I was saying earlier about how like post COVID or like
Hmm.
during COVID, I guess I got really motivated. So like junior year of high school was kind of like my breakout year. I ran like 152 versus like 2 flat before that, and then my senior year, I was like really motivated. I wanted to do well at like CIF in California and like
Hmm.
go to nationals and stuff like that. But I got like super sick like halfway through the season. I actually got it on my MIT visit, like the virus, or at least I'm pretty sure because yeah, it was just something crazy. Like I think it was like an international virus because there's just a huge amount of people visiting that weekend.
Right.
And so yeah, that kind of like destroyed my senior season, and like all the work I was putting in just didn't like go down the drain, but definitely was like I was like left like wanting more. Like I was really trying to PR and run fast and do well that season, but didn't really. I guess I PR'd in like the 1600 that season, but not the 800 or anything. So then my going into MIT my freshman year, I ran cross country there, and I remember I was getting like really swamped by the work there my freshman like
Hmm.
fall, and I wasn't sleeping well, and I don't know, I just kind of wasn't taking that good of care of my body. And at the same time I was doing like higher mileage than I ever had before. I was doing like 80 miles a week on top of like all these other like external stressors from just being a student there. And yeah, that just led to like some big overtraining problems I had. I had like a heart problem that I got checked out that I think is like, or it's like definitely fine now. But so that took me out of my freshman track seasons, both indoor and outdoor. And then come sophomore year, I had my indoor season, and I was actually dealing with like an Achilles issue for a while, and it got better like halfway through that indoor season, and I started running well. And then like right when I started running well again, then COVID hit, which was just kind of like a slap in the face. Like
Yeah.
I was waiting that whole time to get ripping, but then I got hit with that, and then it's like, yeah, you don't have a track season for another full year from now. So I was just like, dang, like the only way I can feel okay with this is if I like take advantage of like this time off and just get like as fit as possible until next year. And then we ended up having the next year canceled because of COVID still. And MIT was actually like one of those few schools that didn't like let us compete the
Hmm.
next spring. So we didn't have a track season until my senior year. And yeah, I guess like that was my senior year was my first year that I was kind of running track seriously for MIT, which is kind of why like I was like under the radar for so long, even though I'm like a senior and stuff.
Yeah, that's wild. How did you stay motivated? I mean, obviously, like, I think a lot of us dealt with that during the COVID time period, but then you had the additional time where you couldn't race as well. How did you kind of
Yeah,
stay motivated to keep grinding, knowing that you weren't going to be able to like prove your fitness for a while?
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's definitely like it would have been a different story if you told me like right when COVID started, like, hey, you're not going to be running track until your senior year. Like I thought when COVID started, like, oh, just my sophomore track season is over, but I'll be able to run junior year cross country. But then that came around, that got canceled. Then I thought I was going to be able to run track the next year, and then that got canceled. So it was kind of like leading me on in a way that kept me like motivated thinking I was going to get to run, but then I didn't actually, which in retrospect is really nice. But yeah, definitely if you told me, like, yeah, your next 3 seasons for like a year and a half are going to be canceled, I probably would have, I don't know, that would have been a different story for sure. And
Yeah,
yeah,
that's I'm sure that's a harder pill would have been a harder pill to swallow.
yeah.
So when you are I did actually get the opportunity to race, we always like to ask, what was your like welcome to the NCAA moment where you were like, wow, this is a different level than high school?
Um, honestly, I would say like I don't know. I don't want to disrespect D3 or anything, but I would say D3 isn't like levels better than high school, as like you would
Hmm.
agree. But I would say like I didn't really get that until like Brian Clay this last season, this last outdoor season, when like I was running like D3 races all indoor and everything, and like I was having pretty strong competition, but there weren't typically people that were like destroying me. But then
Right.
like once I got to Brian Clay, I was getting whooped, and yeah, that was just like, dang, like the D1 guys are legit.
Yeah, Brian Clay, I think humbles a lot of people.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
especially in the middle distances. It is just the best of the best, and everybody's
yeah,
running for those fast times. So
yeah.
I totally get that. What about the situation that you were in at MIT? Do you feel like helped you improve so much throughout your years there?
Um, I would definitely attribute it to like a lot of it to my coach Riley, who came in my junior track season as kind of like a part-time coach. He like he basically just knows, like, he's like a running nerd, like a running like physiology nerd. He knows like all about like all the specifics of training and how the body works and everything. And that was like, no disrespect to my former coaches before that, but that was really like the first coach I ever had that like kind of knew like really how to train me well.
Hmm.
And like both directly because I was doing better training, that helped me a lot, and then also just like knowing that, like, oh, now I have this guy who's guiding me, that's like definitely leading me in the correct direction, that made me like a lot more invested than before, when I like wasn't like quite as sure what I was doing was the best thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, having confidence in your training, I feel like I coached at the high school level for a little while, and I feel like that was one of the biggest things that I had to drill into them is like if you're not all in to the training, it's hard for any training to really be that beneficial. So
Yeah.
I totally get that. So you run this past year 3:55 in the mile to set the D3 record. Was there a workout or a race preceding that like made you realize that you were going to be able to attack that record and the 800 record?
Yeah, so I was coming off like cross country like the previous fall, and I was feeling like levels more like aerobically fit than I ever had before. And that was because I was doing like higher mileage than I ever had for a very extended long period, and I guess I absorbed it pretty well. And then I actually got like sick in December, I think. So I was feeling pretty bad like January leading up to my mile, or like the month leading up to it at least.
Mhm.
But then I got healthy, and then it just randomly started clicking again. I had like a 3K opener like 2 weeks before. I think I ran like 8:11 or 8:12. I'm not sure, but that was like, given how I was feeling, like that was like way faster than I thought I would have run. I thought like since I was feeling sick, I was doing tempos at like 5:40 and stuff. I thought I might run like an 8:25 or something.
Mhm.
So running 8:11, feeling bad, I was like, okay, dang, I'm like pretty fit right now. And then freshened up, got like even less sick, like even more healthy. And then I think the next week I did like a 4 by 600, 200 workout
Mhm.
where I want to say it was like 30 or 45 seconds between the six and twos, and then like 2 minutes between the twos and the sixes. So it was like broke 4 by broken 800s.
Yep.
And I'm not, I might be wrong about my splits, but I think it was like 131, 28, and then one like 29, 27, then like 126, 26, and then the last one for sure was like a 124 and then a 25, which was like, when I did that,
That's moving.
yeah, I was like, oh dang, this like 60 seconds a lap is definitely like my mile pace, if not slower.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great workout to point to. Maybe walk me through that mile race at BU. Like how obviously you were feeling fresher. You had that good workout under your belt. Um,
Mhm.
what were you feeling as you kind of got in, and when did you realize that you were going to be able to run a really quick time?
Yeah, so I was like actually pretty nervous going into that race. That was maybe like the most nervous I was for a race like all last track season, because that was kind of like my one, not my one shot to break four, but like my main shot at least. And yeah, I was like, I went on, I don't know if you know like the D3 Glory Days podcast, but
Yeah.
they were asking me like what I thought I could run, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna try to go sub 4. So I was like low key calling my shot, and so yeah, I felt like pressure to do this thing that, my PR before that was technically like a 4:06, so it was kind of like, yeah, I wasn't sure if I was gonna be able to do that. And so yeah, going into it, I was really nervous, and the guys in my heat, I was like in the sixth heat, so
Mhm.
I was thinking like they weren't gonna go out that hard. I thought it was gonna go out in like a two flat or something through 8:09, and they ended up going out in like 1:57 or 1:58, which was like kind of perfect for me because
Mhm.
I could just like stay towards the middle. And then basically what happened was like the Providence guy, he was pacing like DJ Principe,
Mhm.
and they were just out front dragging like a couple of people with them. And then I just like attached myself to that train, and then just rode it until like 1200 to go. And they just, it was just perfect. I kind of like, I didn't have to make any like crazy moves or run in lane two or anything. They just like took me through 1200 at like, or 1209 at like 2:58, which is just like perfect. And then did like the last 400 by myself. And yeah, just, it was so loud in there. I just had like so much adrenaline. So yeah, I just went as hard as I could. Everyone was cheering and everything, and yeah, it was
That's awesome.
like
Yeah.
a special moment.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, the energy in that building, I can only imagine what you're feeling like as you're on the brink of like
Yeah,
getting your goals and everything.
yeah, exactly.
So let's maybe shift gears a little bit and talk about some of your national titles that you won. Is there one that kind of stands out more than the others, or one that you're more proud of than maybe the other ones that you've won?
Yeah, it's definitely my first one, like indoor my senior year. like my fourth year, not my fifth year, which was
Mhm.
the 800. And I mean, yeah, like that was, I'd never won anyone before, and that was like my first track nationals I'd ever been to, and I was like seeded third or something, so I wasn't like expected to win or anything. And like going in, it was kind of like a, like I knew like I had it in myself to like put myself in a good position to win, but you never know, like what if another dude is just in 147 shape, you can't do anything about that. So like I really just told myself to like, this is where you got to be brave, and like I put myself out there. And I like, before this race, I don't think I had ever led like a competitive 800 before. Like I've led like dual meets back in high school and stuff, but
Mhm.
I'd never led one before. And I had like lane 1 on the indoor track, and it was like a waterfall start. And also knowing like how indoor tracks work, especially on a flat track, like passing is really tough. So if like you have the ability, it's like there's definitely a lot of upside you can get by controlling the race from the front. So before that race, I didn't plan on going out in the lead, but I definitely knew that I would have to be prepared to if no one else was like taking it out in under like a 27.5 or something like that.
Mhm.
And yeah, I ended up getting to the 200 in the lead, and then from that point on, I was really stressing, honestly. I was like, dang, like I'm doing this right now. Like I just like kept telling myself like, yeah, you got to be brave, like stick to this. Like someone might be faster than you, but like there's nothing stopping you from giving everything you have. And yeah, I felt like simultaneously like so like energized and had so much adrenaline and everything, but also like so clear headed at the same time. Like
Mhm.
I was thinking like every like what was going through, like I was thinking about like the race tactics, basically just really carefully that whole time, like thinking like, oh, I'll let him come up on my outside on this turn and then go on the back stretch. So like he had to run the extra distance, but then go when he could actually pass, stuff like that. And I feel like I had to play it like perfectly to get the win, and I did end up playing it like pretty much perfectly, and I barely got the win. And yeah, that was just like a unbeatable feeling of like all through COVID, it was like, okay, I'm gonna like grind on running and stuff. I really want to win like a D3 title. That'd be so cool. And it all like culminated in that moment of like wow, like I actually did it, and especially in a fashion of like not being the favorite to win. Like if I was like 3 seconds faster than the next seed the whole season, then it's kind of just like a, like I'm expecting that the whole time, so I
Right.
kind of relish in that for a while. But I didn't know if I was gonna win up until like literally the race was over. Like I think I won by less than 2 meters, less than a meter or something. So yeah, that was just a super rewarding race.
Yeah, I mean the unexpected ones. I feel like whenever you're cheering for your favorite sports team and they're not expecting to have a great season, and then they do. That's so much more exciting than them just having a good
Yeah,
season, even when you expect it, right?
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned kind of just being like so clear minded during that race. I think
Mm-hmm.
we can all maybe think of a few different races where you just were like in that zone or in the like in flow state almost, where it's just like
Yeah.
you every like time slowed down or you just felt so in control. And so yeah, I think what you're describing, that makes sense why that race stands out for you.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked. You mentioned the 800 as your first national title. Is the 800? Are you more comfortable, or do you like running the 800 more than the 15 or the mile, or do you have a real preference?
Um, I've gone back and forth, honestly. Like I've had times where I feel like the mile is really painful, like it hurts like 600 in and it's just a
Yeah.
long burn. But then I've also had times where the mile feels like pretty controlled, and it's just like a, like since you don't hit that same intensity threshold as in the 800, I like it better. But honestly, it changes over time, and I'd say like usually it's my favorite event is like whichever one I just did better in. If I'm being honest.
That's totally fair. I always like the 1500 a little bit more, just because the 800 for me at least felt like, because I just didn't have in like crazy like 400 speed to like, it just felt like a sprint for that first 400, and then
Yeah,
you're just hanging on for dear life. Whereas like the 15, like you said, it's hurting, but you feel a little bit more in control.
yeah, exactly.
All right, well, let's shift gears here and talk about your upcoming year. You decided to transfer to Duke. What attracted you to go there, and were there any other schools that you were looking at initially?
Yeah, so I'd say like the big things about Duke, or I guess like taking a step back, like looking at a grad year somewhere, I
Hmm.
was looking for like a good academic option, kind of like how I was doing that back in undergrad, and that like narrowed down a lot of schools already. And then some of the things I liked about Duke was like the location, like they have really nice weather here, other than like honestly right now it's like way too hot. But yeah, they have great running trails. The guys on the team seem really cool, and probably a really big thing is basically all of the grad transfers on like the cross country team and like track, we all are like in the same grad program, and it's like a 1 year program that's like honestly kind of designed for athletes. So
Hmm.
it feels kind of like I'm in a freshman year again, where I have like all these people doing the same classes as me, like going through the same process. And I'm not like the one like odd grad transfer out like I might be at other schools. So yeah, that was definitely like a pretty big thing. And yeah, also just they've had like some pretty good middle distance success, and yeah, I think like we can do pretty well like Penn relays this year and the DMR and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we announced the transfer, I think we thought it made a lot of sense, the middle distance success that program has had. I mean, did you contemplate going back closer to home in California at all? Were there any schools that
Yeah,
kind of came to mind there?
yeah, I was looking at some California schools. Um, honestly, I don't know if I'm supposed to name them or
Oh,
not.
you're fine if you don't want to.
Yeah, I was looking at a lot of or like a few California schools that
Okay.
would have been nice, but I eventually like didn't like my options as much as Duke for a variety of reasons.
Absolutely. So you've been at Duke for almost a month now. Has it kind of surprised you in any way? What's been kind of your biggest takeaways being there for the first few weeks?
I would say I definitely like adjusted to like a completely new like kind of life and living situation really fast. Like I
Hmm.
was at MIT for like a very long time, and it was kind of sad to like leave everyone behind and kind of like go start fresh somewhere new. Like I didn't know a single person here really at all, but yeah, within like the first couple of weeks, made a lot of friends, like the guys a lot, and yeah, I'm like getting a good feel of everything. Like I was definitely a little bit anxious about like all the potential things that could go wrong. Just obviously that are inherent to like completely changing up your lifestyle,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's definitely working out really well. One thing I'd say is like I mentioned earlier, it's really hot here, and like I'm from California, and it's like 75 in the summer there, so I'm dying on some runs, going like 8:30 pace.
Yeah, the heat and humidity. So I'm originally from Nashville, so
Yeah,
the heat is one thing, but then you have the humidity on top of it, and where you just
yeah,
like feel like you're running in a fishbowl and barely able to breathe at some points. But it does get better, right? Like, but by
yeah,
the time like the end of the fall, I'm sure it'll be perfect weather for you.
yeah, yeah. That's what they're saying.
So you kind of briefly mentioned maybe some of the team things that you're looking forward to this coming year with Duke. What are maybe some of your individual goals that you're looking forward to doing this upcoming year?
I guess just do like, I know it's like you probably don't want a vague answer, but really just like running as fast as I can, doing as well as I can at like
Yeah,
nationals, maybe like winning ACCs or placing like top 3 at D1. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like making goals like that is kind of just all at the same time like betting on what other people are doing. Like if there's
sure.
like a 3:48 guy next year, or like yeah, this upcoming track season, like I can't do anything about that. So I don't want to set my mind on winning or anything.
Right.
But yeah, maybe like time wise, I think we're going to BU this year.
Hmm.
Time wise, maybe like 3:53 or something in the mile. I would definitely be really happy with that. Like I know it's like pretty common for people to have like a big breakout year and then kind of struggle the next year with motivation because it's you kind of have this feeling of like is there more, like,
Yeah.
and so I've been trying to like be very conscious of like a lot of the downsides of having like a big breakout season like that, and like doing everything I can to like make sure I go into this season like as hungry and like as prepared as I did for last season, like if not more. So yeah, I'm just gonna try to set myself up to be able to run faster times than last season. As simple as that sounds.
Yeah, I mean that's all you can ask for, right? Is to improve every year, and I think the point you make about trying to not let your like breakout year define you,
Hmm.
and pushing on and exceeding expectations again, like you said, is very difficult. But I think the fact that you're already thinking about that and kind of being conscious of it, I think is a very good sign for you. Um, well, hey, this has been awesome. Really appreciate you taking the time. You have anything else you want to throw out there before we wrap up?
Nothing off the top of my head. Sorry.
No, that's all good. I usually just want to let people give people the opportunity to say anything if we hadn't covered it.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you taking the time. And for everyone listening to the podcast this week, we'll talk to you next time.